I think Mr. Woodward has just given us one of the most irresponsible, scaremongering and validating of violence that I've heard in a long time.
He's not validating violence. He's made it incredibly clear he's against violence, and you know it.
He's making it easy for those to resort to violence by providing a background of justification. Let's not beat around the bush. But let's be really clear. Mr. Woodward clearly doesn't understand the British-Irish Agreement. Let me take him back to Article 2 of the British-Irish Agreement, signed on the 10th of April 1998, to which the Belfast Agreement is appended. Article 2 says that the two governments make a solemn commitment to support, where appropriate, implementation of what is now called the Belfast Agreement, where appropriate. Now, it could not be appropriate to implement a different human rights standard within one part of the United Kingdom if you abrogate that standard in another, because that would not just be constitutionally wrong, but it would create it would create Northern Ireland as a dumping ground for migrants who would have rights here that they wouldn't have elsewhere. But really, it falls pretty rich from the lips of Mr. Woodward to now be so exercised about the Belfast Agreement when he stood back and watched it be ripped up, the heart ripped out of it. What was the heart of the Belfast Agreement? It was cross-community consent. And yet, in order to protect and sustain the Union Dismantling Protocol, the British government tore the heart out of the Belfast Agreement and dispensed with cross-community consent when it came to the adoption of the protocol. So really, I take no lessons from a selective Mr. Woodward, who today favours the Belfast Agreement, but yesterday, when it came to that, was prepared to see it ripped up.
You will want to respond to that, Sean.
Well, you see, here's where Mr. Woodward is wrong again. If he listened to Mr. Farage yesterday, he would have heard him say there would be a British Bill of Rights. It's not a matter of abrogating rights. It's a matter of taking control of those rights under our own sovereign parliament.
Just like you promised people, with Brexit, that they would take control. You're not going to
distract me with puerile points, Stephen. Farage said yesterday...
Brexit's a puerile point now?
No, your connotations on it are puerile, often are. But let's be very clear. What Farage said yesterday was there would be a British Bill of Rights. Those would be rights for everyone legally in the United Kingdom. This is about taking back control of our own control of human rights. It's not about abrogating and removing human rights. It's about putting them under the control of a sovereign parliament. Mr. Woodward knows that, but of course he doesn't mention it. He simply says you're about taking away rights. You're not. You're about putting those rights under the control of a sovereign parliament. And that seems to me to be the right way to go. The point is that the laws that govern your citizens should be made by those your citizens elect. Sadly, we don't even have that in Northern Ireland, thanks to people like you. But the context is that your human rights law should be that decreed not by the diktats of a foreign court, but by the sovereign parliament of the United Kingdom. And that is,
in other words, Jim, you're saying that the content would be different.
He would provide. The content
would be different. It wouldn't just be changing the name.
The content would be the democratic decision of the democratic parliament of the United Kingdom. Now, if you object to that, and if you want supranationalism through foreign uncontrollable courts to decide the rights of the United Kingdom, then we fundamentally disagree.
Nigel Farage has also said, in renegotiating the Good Friday Agreement to get the ECHR out of it, that yes, he wants to do that. It's that can happen very, very quickly. No, he says it'll take longer. So unfortunately, and for a variety of reasons, he said, previous governments have placed Northern Ireland in a different position to the rest of the UK. So that would mean, Jim, yet again, Northern Ireland would have what? Different human rights than the rest of the UK? So it's a border down the Irish Sea with human rights after there's now a border down the Irish Sea with everything else.
I respectfully disagree that it would take a long time. I take you back to Article 2 of the 1998 agreement. The commitment is where appropriate. How could it ever be appropriate for a member state to say we're going to have one set of human rights rules in one part of our country and another set in the other, knowing that those which were the most generous would be where the migrants would like a magnet, orientation.
Owen Tennyson.
So, of course, it's quite right that the Belfast Agreement could be changed. And indeed, how many times has it not been changed? St Andrews, Hillsborough Agreement, tearing it up for the protocol. It's been changed multiple times. So those who are pretending that this is some sort of sacrosanct document really are reeking of hypocrisy when they stood back and endorsed it being ripped apart many, many times.
Your turn, Owen.
Well, sorry, I'm a lot more thick-skinned than that. And, of course, when Mr. Tennyson, he has form in this. When he can't play the game, he plays the man. And here he goes again, because he can't answer the point why he was a party to ripping the heart out of the Belfast Agreement when it came to cross-community consent and dispensing it when it came to the unionist community on the re-engagement with the protocol. He can't answer that. So he has form both for playing the man and dodging the issue. And the issues he's dodging is there is nothing sacrosanct about the Belfast Agreement now that it has been trashed by Mr. Tennyson and his friends in government and out of government by removing its heart, which was cross-community consent. But I come back to the point. It is quite clear that, of course, there are going to be rights. There have always been rights. Before there ever was a European Convention on Human Rights, we had common law rights. And indeed, there's an argument that common law rights indeed are better than legislative rights. But whether they are legislative rights in a British Bill of Rights or whether they are common law rights, they must apply to all of the United Kingdom. The key's in the title, United Kingdom. You can't have different rights in one part of the kingdom from another.
What's your view?
That's what I aspire
What's
to.
your view, Owen, on the...
Well, I'm glad he mentions Dublin 3. Because Dublin 3 is a glaring example of how France, for example...
I don't think a majority of people listening to this programme have a baldy clue what Dublin 3 is.
Well, let's educate you and them, Stephen. Dublin 3 is a regulation of the EU that says that you should return to the point of entry within the EU those who have illegally come as migrants. France is failing in that duty because they're not arriving in France. They're arriving in Italy, they're arriving in Greece, they're arriving in other parts of the EU. France should be returning them to the entry point. They're not doing it. They're standing back and facilitating them coming to the United Kingdom. So, yeah, let's have Dublin 3 implemented.